It's the Cassius Show, folks. Thank you for tuning in, and we're here with a very special guest joining us in Los Angeles via Skype. It is Gina Grad from the Adam Carolla Show. Gina, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
100%. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to come in. I'm definitely a big follower of what you do over at the show and in LA, so I am curious to talk to you about it. Now, did you just come from a taping with Adam at the show?
Literally just left the studio in Glendale, and we had are you a Karate Kid fan? Are you familiar with the franchise?
I am, yeah.
We just had Marty Cove, who was Kreese, the mean dojo teacher from way back in the day.
Nice.
We had a blast talking to him. So yeah, I literally just got home from that. I'm still in my ACS hoodie even.
There you go. Very cool. Now, what's the process like when it comes to recording the show? Because I know you guys are doing 2-part episodes. Are you guys doing 1 or 2 episodes a day? How are you guys breaking it down?
99% of the time we do 1 show a day, and it's live to tape. So it's not like, one of us says something and Adam goes, cut, make sure that doesn't make it in. As a listener, I'm sure you know that pretty much everything we say has always made it in. I can't think of a time where it didn't. So it's live to tape, generally 1 show a day. And if he's going out of town, he's doing a lot of stuff lately, promoting Not Taco Bell Material, his stand-up special, and Adam Carolla's Unprepared, the kind of the funny live show he started with Jimmy Kimmel. So if he's, if we can't tape because he's out of town, we'll double up the day before. But generally it's 1 show a day for us.
Gotcha. And I am very interested in, the transition for you, because you have had a long career in terrestrial radio and a very successful career there. What does this sort of experience doing a podcast and coming in and being employed by a podcaster, what's that like compared to being employed by a terrestrial radio station?
That's a really good question. And it's funny because I kind of have had both of my toes in both pools the whole time, but just not on this large a scale.
Right.
When Adam started podcasting, right when our station KLSX blew up, as we call it, switched formats to Top 40, I started podcasting at the exact same time. So we were all kind of in on this venture, sort of everyone kind of just trying this new Wild West medium just to see what was out there and what the potential was. So I did that for 6 years with my buddy Randy, and then did my own show. And so all the time working in radio, we were all kind of trying to figure out podcasting. But then when I got picked up for the morning show with another one that is now defunct, because that's what radio stations do. They flip and they get sold and they change formats, and we're all just little rats from a sinking ship. I got to tell you, there is a sigh of relief you can breathe in podcasting that if you tried to exhale, you would not be employed the next day. Right. There's a certain amount of cursing and blue humor we get away with. There's oh my God, you didn't go to commercial in time. Like, there's none of that. So it's definitely more relaxed in many ways.
Yeah, 100%. I can imagine, because it's just structured in such a different way. And so what's it like with the Ace Studios? Because you guys have, at least 5 or 6 different shows going on, right?
He does. Yeah. He has, our, the quote unquote, the main show, the Adam Carolla Show. He has as Ace on the House, or Ace on the Roof, as his dad calls it. He has the Adam and Dr. Drew Show, which is essentially like Loveline, from back in the day. He has CarCast. And so there's always life being breathed into that warehouse, and we just kind of show up and do our thing and we're out the door again. But that's his full-time job.
Yeah, 100%. And this is what he lives and breathes. You can tell he still has a strong passion for it. And you started your journey with the Adam Carolla Show in 2015. Coming in to your position, it was quite interesting circumstances, and I guess I could call it not the typical circumstances for somebody who's starting in a new position. I'm just curious, looking back, what are your thoughts and reflections on that period of time and how you were brought into the show?
That's a really good question, and frankly, I kind of have to dip back into my memory bank, because every day is such a new experience that I have to be like, oh yeah, what did it feel like when I started?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, first and foremost, getting the morning show and Adam within 2 weeks of each other, I was overwhelmed. It's like when they say that what success is preparation meets inspiration or motivation or one of the Asians. I had been prepping for these big opportunities for a million years. And once they said, okay, fine, they're yours, I was terrified.
Yeah.
I didn't know how I was going to handle the schedule. I got up at 3:30 in the morning to do the morning show. I didn't know how I was going to handle keeping up with Adam Carolla, which is a real thing. Somebody with an improv background like he has and a mind that works as fast as he does, all you can do is literally try and attempt to run alongside a speeding train, which is very difficult. And it remains difficult. It remains something that we have to be conscious of every day. I was scared. I was excited. I finally, honestly, I felt validated, like all this hard work continues to pay off in these wonderful ways, and you know, making connections and not being, you know, a horrible person. People file that away in their memory bank, like, oh, she's a hard worker. She's easy to get along with. She's nice. Let's see. Maybe that'll be a thing. So all those things are very validating. But I was scared too.
Yeah, which makes sense because you started the morning show in Los Angeles and then you were discovered through that by Adam. Is that correct?
Actually, no. I can totally I can explain that for you, and it's going to blow your mind if that's
okay, for sure.
Because that makes sense. That totally makes sense. But long story short, the station that Adam did the morning show on, KLSX 97.1, the FM talker, that's what we called it. He did the mornings with Teresa Strasser, who's a dear friend of mine, and I did the nights with a man named Tim Conway Jr. Tim Conway Sr. is a famous, who's on the Carol Burnett show and famous comedy actor. His son is a very prominent radio guy here in LA. So I was producing his show, and I did the news every night, even though he made me do it like Robin Quivers because he thought it was funny, Howard Stern's newswoman. But I eventually got to do it as myself. So there were ways that the Carolla world and the night show world kind of intermingled. And when I met Teresa, we were all working at the same station. So that was 2006. 2007. So we all kind of were in each other's worlds, even though we weren't close. Yeah. I tell Adam to this day, if I saw him walking down the street, I would still go up and introduce myself. I don't assume anyone ever remembers me or knows who I am. So, at that time, I would definitely continue to introduce myself to him. But so we were sort of in each other's orbit. And then when he started the podcast, whenever they needed a fill-in for Teresa, I would come in. So that had been happening for years. And whenever they needed a fill-in for Allison, I would come in. So we all sort of knew each other. And then there was a trip to Vegas where I think Allison might have been on her honeymoon. And I had to go with them to do a few shows in Vegas. And we were talking in the car. It was Adam and Mike August, who, if you listen to the show, he's kind of Adam's right-hand man and sort of he's just our fixer.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just great. And I was talking to the two of them, and I said, I have good news. I got the morning show. And so I was literally in the car with Adam when I got to tell them that, and that was exciting. So we all knew each other, and that's when they were trying to figure out sort of what's next. And I think everything just ended up kind of falling into place after that.
Right. Okay. So do you feel like the cosign, so to speak, from the morning show had an impact on Adam?
Ooh, that's a great question. Maybe so. I don't know. I don't know if that was something they were already considering, or if it was just one of those things where, the window of opportunity is closing. She's got another job. So if you want her, you better tell her now. So I don't know. I never asked, and I don't know that I want the answer.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, nonetheless, you've definitely proven, your worth on the show and what you bring to the show, which is incredibly entertaining. You mentioned, how difficult it was, I guess, at the beginning, and sometimes is, to keep up with Adam, since he is, like you said, a speeding train. So I guess it's a two-part sort of question. I guess the first part is, how long did it take you to sort of feel like you were getting into a rhythm with Adam and the crew on the show?
Oh, that's a good question, because I know people say stuff like this and they don't mean it. And I'm about to tell you something that I 100% mean. Okay. I've been there for over 4 years, and I walk in there every day feeling like the new kid every day. Wow. New girl, new person there, trying out just to see. I don't know if I'll ever feel totally comfortable. And I don't know if I'm ever supposed to, because once you're really comfortable in a situation, you kind of have the ability to start resting on your laurels. Not an option on the Adam Carolla Show.
Yeah.
Everyone is on top of their game the second they walk into that warehouse, and that's what's expected of you. That's neutral. That's not, hey, you really went over and above. No. Adam's working his ass off, and that is what is expected from the rest of us. So I never feel like, what are we doing? Okay, cool. Oh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, you don't, that doesn't fly there, and it shouldn't. So in many ways, I really do still feel like I'm new and I have a lot to prove, but I understand your question, and I can't feel like I felt the first day forever. So I would say, I don't know, maybe 2 years in, there's something about a year feeling like an audition, and then the second year being like, okay, I think I work here now. And a big part of that, I think a huge part of that, is we used to tour like every weekend. So you get to know someone real fast when you're on the road with them and you're stuffed into an SUV with them every weekend, out of the year. So, excuse me, I just hiccuped. I'd be on the morning show, and then I'd fly from LAX to our next destination. We'd spend all weekend doing shows, and I'd fly back in time for a 4 a.m. call for the morning show. So it was a challenging and exciting time. And I think that was mostly the second year. So you really do feel like you belong when you're on the travel team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And then at that point, you're thrown even more into the mix with the Carolla fans and that whole community. What was that like initially, and what does that continue to be like now? Because there's some people who are very, very involved and dedicated in it.
Oh, it seems that way. First of all, 100% of the time when I go to live shows, those are the people who love the show. They love the crew. And it is just, every one of us is welcomed with the most excited and open arms. And it's just like, they feel like family reunions. They're always fun. The people who are there are just happy to meet you, which is still fun and weird to me. And so there's sometimes I'm like, my throat hurts. I should probably go home. Nobody cares if they meet me or not. And the next day I get this barrage of tweets being like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Dee couldn't come say hi. And I was like, oh my God, why would anyone care? Oh, well, they do. That's what's important. So there's wonderful people at the live shows, and there's wonderful people everywhere. When I first started in that hot seat, you are picked apart, you are scrutinized, you are name called, you run a gauntlet through a fiery avalanche, on social media. And it was difficult, feeling misunderstood, and, people being like, who's she? She just dropped out of the sky, not knowing that I'd been working for this for 10 years and been doing this for longer than anyone who just met me would realize. And, nobody's the perfect fit. There's, successful talk show hosts and sitcoms, and the pilots are like, how did you get another episode? And I'm sure that was me. Like, how did she get to keep that chair? But you start to meld. This is funny. I'm sorry. Teresa Strasser's Marco Poloing me right now.
No, that's okay. That's good content.
Sorry. We'll watch that later. But you do have a lot to prove, and you got to dry those tears, and you got to suck it up, and you got to get back to work, because everyone's going to give you their opinion. And at the beginning, it's very stressful, and there's a lot of negativity, and there's a lot of, prove yourself to me. Who do you think you are? And who I think I am is somebody who worked hard, who got a chance and didn't blow it. That's who I thought I was, and that's still who I think I am. Now, after this many years, I really don't see any of that. It's certainly not brought to my attention, and that's the way it should be, because when you're trying to be successful and you're trying to keep your eye on the prize, you can't really allow yourself to get distracted by just noise of other people's opinions. If somebody wants to say something lovely to me, I say, well, that was so nice. Thank you for your kind words. And if someone says they hate me, going, oh, well, not for everybody. But to take either of those opinions in too much really throws you off your game. So in the last few years, I've definitely learned, say thank you very much to the compliments, say sorry it didn't work for you to the insults, and just keep your head down and keep working.
That's true. That's a really good point because it happens to everybody who's putting themselves out there in the public eye, and you can't avoid it. Another interesting thing I'm thinking about in terms of your position on the show is that you started in 2015, and things have evolved quickly in the world of news and in the world of politics. I'm curious, how has that affected, since the 2016 election, your position on the show as a news person?
Before I answer that, do you have any aspirations to be like a town hall, like debate mediator? Because you're amazing and you ask the most amazing questions.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I hope to be on.
That's something to think about.
Well, I definitely hope to be on television and radio. That's my aspirations.
My God, if you could just send me what you're going to ask people ahead of time, and it'll make me smarter if I ever ask them those questions.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a really good question because this is a tumultuous time in America.
Right.
And that how I present it in the news, honestly, it comes and goes. It used to be, obviously you can't ignore a presidential election. There's not enough TMZ gossip in the world to bury the lead of who's going to be the next president. So that was difficult because you want to make sure you're getting all the stories and everything that, the media, which I guess I'm a part of, even though I feel like sort of a very deep offshoot. Yeah. It's what everyone's talking about. You're not giving your opinion. You're just saying, so this is what everyone's talking about. Do you guys want to talk about it? So we did a lot of that. We couldn't avoid it. And these days, because we all get it, we, as Adam says, we all know the beats. We all know Donald Trump's going to wake up at 4 a.m. and start firing off his tweets. And then this group that's completely opposed to him is going to start their onslaught of mess, and everyone's just going to be in a mess all day. In a way, I think that's given us sort of, I think it's given me a little bit of permission to sort of back off from that news, from politics, and to bring up other subjects. Because at this point, we know the game. We know they're all tweeting each other back and forth, and he said this and she said this, and some of the points I think are valid, and some of the points Adam thinks are valid, and every once in a while we'll get into that. But there's a lot more going on, and I think at this point we're allowed to talk about that stuff as opposed to just drilling down on, what Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson think of everything.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and especially due to the fact that you guys aren't owned by anybody. Adam's the owner and he's in the room, so you know that there isn't anybody pulling the strings behind the scenes, and there isn't really interest into drumming the same information into people's heads.
Exactly. And I think about that a lot because I think, if people don't like my opinion or Brian, the other co-host, or Adam's, all of a sudden they don't like us. And I think, well, I wear it as a badge of honor when I'm friends with somebody that I disagree with on so many levels. I love sort of taking that in. I have a weird, sick compulsion for finding common ground with people.
Right.
But in general, it's like, well, first of all, I'm just reporting the story. So don't shoot the messenger. And second of all, we're all allowed to have our own opinions. I'm allowed to have an opinion. The listener's allowed to have an opinion. Adam's allowed to have an opinion. And they don't have to match for us to be friends. So if you want to say, I don't listen to the Carolla Show anymore because, Adam said this or Gina says that, it kind of says more about you than it does about us. Not to be too, name-cally or sticks and stones, but as a listener and appreciator of other people's shows and other people's podcasts, I've done a little bit of a look in the mirror too, being like, it says a little bit more about me when I'm trash talking somebody else. So I'm gonna sort of cool my heels and let people do what they think fulfill their purpose in their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when there's a world and a wealth of entertainment out there for everybody. You don't need to force yourself to engage in something you're not interested in, I guess.
No. It's tempting, though. People love to argue.
They do. I guess that's the thing, right? I guess it's human nature for some people, and probably a good percentage of people nowadays.
Yeah.
I guess it's hard to avoid. You do have a website here that I wanted to ask you about, and it's Gina Grad Presents Grain-Free Comfort Food.
Yeah.
And it ties into your segment on the Carolla Show. I want to hear a little bit about that, your passion for cooking and how that's tied in for you.
It's brand new, I guess. I mean, it's the last few years. I'm so excited about it. Long story short, for people who might not know the Carolla Show as well as you or I do, we have sort of like an in-house nutritionist. Our buddy Vinny Tortorich sort of came into my life a few years ago, and he preaches this no sugar, no grain diet. The first year of doing the morning show and Adam at the same time, I ballooned up, as a friend of mine says, not about me, but this is so funny. It looked like I stepped on an air hose, as she would say. I mean, I put on so much weight. I was exhausted. My cortisol was through the roof. We had a free vending machine at Carolla at the time. I was a mess. I was exhausted. I was gaining weight at a comical speed. It couldn't be stopped. And so I met Vinny, and he's like, I could help you with that. And I go, I can't take one more disappointment. Please, no more diets, no, please. But he convinced me, and I laid off the gluten, which, by the way, I'm not supposed to be eating anyway, according to my blood work, and really tried to change the whole lifestyle with getting rid of as much of the sugars and the grains as possible. It helped me a lot. I love cooking now. I had to start cooking because I didn't know when I went to restaurants, like, well, do you use sesame oil or do you use like, you can't be that guy every night.
Right.
Nobody wants to hang out with you. So I had to learn to cook, and I love it. It's become my passion. It's my therapy. The worse the day I have, the more I go to the grocery store. I walk into the kitchen. I don't even put my keys down. I just fire up the stove and start cooking. And when people say, like, oh, I love painting, or I love the piano, it's my therapy. I'm like, shut up. Sitting on my ass watching TV, that's my therapy, okay? Let's not all be too full of ourselves.
Preach.
No, but I found it. I get it now. I just hadn't found anything that I loved. Now I do. I love cooking, and I love cooking comfort food. That's why my website's grain-free comfort food, because I don't know how to cook fancy, and I don't really hang out with people that appreciate fancy. So I just make stews and soups and casseroles, and, as we call it in the Midwest, hot dish. And I just like making just yummy stuff that you can eat later, and it's become a weird passion. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's cool, and I like the way that it ties in through your social media. And you did mention the Midwest. Of course, you have your roots over in Kansas. I am curious about your transition from Kansas to California and in the radio industry. How exactly did you make that transition? I know it was a long process.
I have no idea. I actually was born in Portland, Oregon, and it's funny, I never mention that because I just think, who cares? But my dad got mad at me the other night, going, you're from Portland, you're not from Kansas. Whatever. I'm from Kansas. Technically, I was born in Portland. All right. So I'm a Midwesterner, and I moved to New York for 2 years, 4 weeks before 9/11. So that was a tough transition as well. Yeah. But I was out there and doing theater and being broke and having the time of my life. And then, of course, young and bad breakup. And I thought I was going to, just come out to LA. My dad lived here, my brother, my friends, and just kind of, just recalibrate before I go back to New York. And I never went back. I fell in love with it here. And I was working in retail on Rodeo Drive, selling suits to businessmen. And I realized I was the worst at it. I don't know whoever handed over money and thought that suit was going to be tailored and waiting for them if I was in charge of it. I don't know how I convinced them to buy from me, but somehow I did. But I couldn't take it anymore because I was not good at it, and that's not what I was supposed to be doing. So I've told this story a million times, but I got an interview at KLSX because my dad worked at the news station upstairs. And this is the amount of nepotism I've ever experienced in my life. Because people who say, she's just in radio because her daddy got her the job. Let's see how daddy got me this one. He called the chief, the COO down at the station where Adam worked, and said, my daughter, would like an interview to be basically a PA, a grunt or an intern. So they had me in. I wore my Rodeo Drive suit, basically brought an attaché case, like a total a-hole, and just really wanted to make a good impression. And long story short, I impressed them so much that I became the call screener, basically the receptionist for their overnight, middle of the night public access show. So that's my big come right this way, ma'am, into radio.
The red carpet.
Exactly. So I did that for a year. And while I was doing that, I was still working on Rodeo. I was doing stand-up comedy, and I did a show for a while in San Diego, which is about 3 or 4 hours from here. and I was doing all of this, and I was burning the candle at both ends, and I got in a terrible car accident, T-boned, and I was laid up for a while. And that's when I got the call again from the COO saying, Tim Conway Jr.'s producer's leaving. Would you like the job? And I said, more than anything. So then I moved up the rank and I answered his phones. And then I got a producer credit. And then I started doing the news on his show. And again, I was only allowed to do it if I did it like Robin Quivers. And I finally convinced him to let me do it as myself. And we would all do bits together. And it was so much fun. And then that station flipped and I got another job at a news station. And you just kind of do your best to find some foothold in the industry you love, because this is a very tough industry.
Yeah, it is. Wow, it's crazy to hear about that climb up, and just, you know, like, you got to jump from thing to thing. It's true to really make it up.
It's very like American Ninja Warrior, the career edition. Like, how am I going to get over this boulder? I don't know. I might not, but here goes nothing. And you know, we talk a lot on Carolla, and I think, you know, there are probably 20 TED Talks about how important relationships are. And I'm not a big extrovert. I know that surprises a lot of people, but like, I just heard Oprah and Amy Schumer talking about how they're introverts. And I'm like, okay, honey, I'm sure of it. But I get it. Like, when you expend that much energy, you need to recharge. You need to go stare at the wall in the bathroom at the party for 5 minutes so you can go back out and, you know, be fun and have a big smile on your face and feel good. It's just, you just get tired. And so I'm like that too. But that doesn't mean, you know, I'm not a good networker. I'm not like, ooh, we should meet for lunch. And I'm not good at that. But I think I'm a hard worker, and I think I'm a nice person. And I think that those relationships, people remember that. And when I got the job on the morning show, Mark Thompson, it was Mark in the Morning, and he was a radio legend here in Los Angeles with Mark and Brian, he told me, he called around to every person I'd ever worked with and said, is she a pain in the ass? Because he's got to know. That's a big, you know, she might have the credits and she might be funny or we might be a good fit, but what do you know about her? When's the last time she freaked out at work, or is she always late and complaining? And everyone said, no, she's delightful. And I said, thank God. Wow. I fooled them all. No, but I was so relieved. Maybe it's that good old fashioned Midwestern values. Maybe it's just good upbringing, and maybe I just know the difference between right and wrong. But either way, when people call your bosses and say, is she a pain in the ass? And they say no, I feel like somebody did something right along the way.
Yes, 100%. And I definitely don't think people can underestimate the value of that. Just treating people with respect and being courteous and being professional, that really does probably go almost the longest way in this industry, as you're mentioning, even over credits. I really appreciate your time here, Gina. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you've given me some great insight into the industry that I'm really looking forward to jumping into. You're in. You're amazing. I guess I did. Oh, well, thank you. Very much appreciated. I'm curious, what's up next for you? I know you have a show coming out with Teresa Strasser. Is there anything you can tell me about that?
Probably what she was calling. I'm so excited. It's been a long time in coming. First of all, we've been talking about doing something together for like a decade, because I do consider her like a sister. And once we became friends, we just kind of forgot to stop being friends, so that relationships continued to blossom. And we have these funny, odd, dark conversations with each other at lunch. So why not have a couple of hot mics? Who cares? You know, We're pretty open. So we got the idea last year, and we're finally able to put it into motion. And it was called Pod Soup, but I think we're actually kind of changing that up a little bit. I know it's been a little confusing, and we appreciate people bearing with us, but there's already a couple Pod Soups, even though Teresa thought of it first a million years ago. So I think we're going with easy listening and going to have kind of a yacht rock theme, but easy listening with Gina and Teresa, and of course via Pod Soup segment where we talk about, and kind of hopefully I'd like to think, and I think Teresa does too, sort of heap praise on episodes of shows that have resonated with us, because we're not really shit talkers, and we don't really like to bad mouth, because that stuff, you'll find it or you won't. But if there's something that really made us think, we really, really want to share it with everybody. Yeah. So that's going to start super soon, and we'll just blast it all over social media. She's flying here in the next few days so we can bang out some episodes, and I'm really excited.
Beautiful. Well, I'm excited to hear it too. Yeah, we'll be sharing the links on our pages.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we can connect again in the future.
Oh, you are a doll, and I hope that you remember me when I need a job in the future.
You're so kind. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, my dear. It's great talking to you.